Good afternoon, everyone. You all hear me? Yes? Thank you for turning up today. It's rather nice to see people without the aid of a Zoom screen or dodgy internet connection. So today we're going to talk a little bit about building brand loyalty through a membership model. And I'm really pleased to welcome my panel here today. Gareth Banner, the Managing Director of the NED here in London. I'm doing it in a funny order, so give a wave, Gareth.
Thank you.
And Rafi Bejarano, is that correct? Yeah, who is the Director of Sopwell House in St Albans. And then on the end over here, Edward Workman, the CEO of the Newton Somerset. And I'm Sophie Harper, the editor of Space Magazine. So what we're going to do is going to run through a few questions first. Hopefully, if we've got time at the end, we can have a Q&A where you guys get to ask the panel questions as well. So, gentlemen, in a world where travellers and holiday makers value individuality and culture over the traditional sense of luxury and style, how does your hotel offer the best experience to your guests, and how does the offer of membership add to that? Gareth, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon. I hope you can hear us. So I think the first thing to say is that for some time now, this is not a relatively new phenomenon, but having somewhere to rest your head and perhaps have something to eat and drink, I think it's still very much at the core of what we do in hospitality and particularly in hotels. But I think if you're aspiring to operate anywhere above what I would say as sort of entry level or limited service concepts, then you need to provide an awful lot more value than simply a bed for the night and somewhere to eat and drink. And I think I'm very lucky. Some of you may know the NED, but we developed a 320,000 square foot building, a former bank in the middle of the city, and we were very fortunate to have space to create multiple assets that we were able to target customers for different reasons. We have extensive... Is this cutting in and out? We have extensive... I think I've broken that. Have I broken that?
I think it just needs slotting in at the side.
Slot me in.
Honestly, can't take you anywhere.
Teamwork.
Thank you. Thank you, Rafi. Always on hand. So yeah, we have multiple restaurants, spa, members club, hotel, event space, cabaret, and a big part of what we do is the entertainment. So you come to the NED, you're no longer just simply a hotel resident who may be there for a weekend break in the traditional sense. We're actually not very close to any of the theatres. We're not very close to any of the major department stores that many people choose to visit when they come to London. You actually come to the NED to spend the weekend at the NED. And when you can spend 48 hours under one roof and not eat in the same restaurant twice, you can go to multiple different events, whether those be entertainment-based or indeed workshops that we run, or indeed get married there, have a meeting, or simply lock yourself away behind closed doors and enjoy the best of our accommodation. We're in a really fortunate position. But I think if I didn't have those assets, being in a location like the city, I think it'd be a really tough sell. I think Monday to Thursday, pre-pandemic, the city ran very high levels of occupancy, achieved some very impressive rates, but the weekend was always known as the Achilles heel. So we were very mindful of that when we developed the project and said, if we are going to have a weekend or a leisure market, then we need to find reasons to create the destination on site. So that's exactly what we did. We didn't get it all right, I hasten to add, and there's still lots of opportunity to do better. But I do think we have exploited the fact that people are craving experiences and are very happy to pay good money for them, provided they are high quality and they are memorable in equal measure.
So what was the thinking behind creating a membership model then to introduce to the NED?
Yeah, so the NED is owned by, or is part of the Soho House Group, which, they are a membership organisation in the first instance. So it was almost members clubs trying to create a hotel that had a public component. which was sort of flipping the model on its head rather than being exclusively private. So we felt that the building was big enough to have a meaningful membership offering physically. We felt that the city didn't really have any members clubs of note. I think a lot of the clubs tended to be in Soho and in Pall Mall, whether those are the sort of the newer, more modern clubs or indeed some of the traditional clubs that you may have visited. And we just felt there was this missed opportunity. And in doing that, it's allowed us to get to know our market very well. I think when you find yourself in a position where membership is a proposition that you can market and appeal to an audience, you get to know a lot about those people very quickly, and in doing so, you get to develop your product and your service to meet their requirements. And despite contrary belief, I think some people have always thought of the Ned as sort of a Soho House for bankers. We spent a long time working on ways to ensure that it didn't become a sort of an after-works drinks club for the banking or the legal profession. And so have targeted the tech team, the tech sort of entrepreneurs and startups in Old Street. We've got Shoreditch, which is about 1.5 miles to the east, and we're also attracting people from further west and even Mayfair and the like. So I think it's complicated membership, and we can talk about that in a bit more detail. But ultimately, it allows us to really, as I say, get to know people in a very different way to simply having a transactional relationship with a restaurant customer or indeed just a hotel guest.
Ed, coming to you now, what is the experience at the Newton Somerset? Obviously slightly different to the sort of customer experience at the Ned. Can you tell us a little bit about the guest experience and then why a membership model?
Good afternoon, everybody. I guess the major difference between what Gareth just said and our approach is, first and foremost, we're a rural location. So, if you're in the middle of a city, the competition is immediately apparent, it's all around you. Mm-hmm. And trying to carve out a point of difference around location is quite challenging, although Gareth has talked about how they've done that at the Ned. Whereas we are the Newton Somerset. We were quite greedy. We put a whole county into the name rather than just a single place. But that really defines us. The unique experience at the Newt starts by the fact that it's in Somerset. And we really play up on that kind of in a hyper locality kind of way. So we have a traditional estate, an English type estate, where we have, again, different to a central London location, a significant amount of land at our disposal, which we can do interesting things with. Most importantly within that is the garden. The garden is really the centre of everything we do at the Newt. So all the other elements of quite a diverse business are built around the garden. The garden sits at the centre. And most people's experience, or if you like, gateway to the Newt starts with the garden in some capacity. And then from that we go into everything else we do. So the growing elements of the garden then come into the restaurant. So the food programme is very influenced by the fact that we have that land, that we are growers and farmers as well as hospitality agents or providers. And that is at this, is the kind of heart of why, or what we're trying to do from a unique perspective. Mm-hmm. And then as a hotel guest, your experience is totally shaped by that. So you may go on a garden tour, you may visit the orchards and do cider tasting, we may send you on a bee safari. So we're trying to give everybody that, I wouldn't say, it's a make-believe in a way. It's not, it's not a true rewilding of nature. It's very orchestrated by us, but it's shaping an experience. And I think people now want that access to that experience, and part of a luxury brand or a luxury hospitality provider's responsibility is to give those people access, to make it easy for them, to not make it difficult to get to it. So that's really what we're trying to do, and we're slightly different. We have a membership element to what we do, but it's very different to, I don't want to say exclusive because you're not exclusive, but the price point of the Ned or the Soho House, we're much more accessible, we're much more aligned with the National Trust of this world, the RHS of this world. But the membership, in the same way it's really important to Gareth, is really important to us. It's about community building. It's about having a core of people that visit us and are loyal to us that we can interact with, and we can improve ourselves and shape the experience around.
I hear that you've got quite a few members now. I think when we were talking before, you were saying you had in excess of
65,000 at the moment.
65,000, which is incredible. Incredible for your location as well, being outside of London.
Yeah, he's only been going 2 years.
Yeah, I think in coming out of the pandemic and during the pandemic, we were fortunate again to have that location, outside of the city. People really wanted to visit green space, and we were able to provide that green space. And that, in a way, provided a lot of, let's say, accelerated slightly our position with membership. We were able to capture new members because we had something they wanted. I think the onus now is on to how we retain those and how we keep people happy and we keep them coming back and still enjoying that.
Yeah, of course. Rafi, your offering at Sopwell House, when we were thinking about membership, is that specifically for the spa? Can you explain what the guest experience is at Sopwell House, and is the membership model just for the spa?
Yeah. The membership model we have is just for the spa. But we relaunched and we reopened our spa a couple of years ago, just before the pandemic. And we wanted to really focus on getting, we call spa members. We wanted to take it to a new level and have a far more exclusive but smaller membership for our new part of the spa. And the question was, how are we going to get that, and how are we going to fill those spaces? We were charging about £5,000 for a year. And we really focused, I think, mainly on our values, which for the spa were individuality. People really wanted to have their needs met and to feel recognized. That was a major factor. So was community. We talked about community, but people really want to be a part of a community, so long as it's a like-minded community. So making them feel connected was a big part of it, and making them focus a bit on their well-being, on their health and happiness, and that really is something that we offer anyway to all of our spa goers in general, but particularly for members. And they get a lot more attention, a lot more focus, and they really feel recognized. And I think that's the key. They want to be known, and they want to be in an area where they feel comfortable that people are similar to them and they share the same types of interests. They consume the same things, or want to, yeah.
So how do you, as a brand, identify the sorts of guests that you want to attract and the sort of person that's going to be interested by a membership to a spa? Is it purely based on well-being? Is it the location? How do you identify those people?
What, nowadays? We do a lot through social media. I'm talking about, we pick up on trend in social media, that who seems to like us and what they're into. So we will look at a lot of influencers in our local area, because I think that what they like and what they want is fundamental. And you can see, I'm not expert on social media or anything, but people follow other people, so we try to understand what those people really want. And I think our most loyal customers, and the ones who love us the most, they're our best way for us to build the brand, because they are like our ambassadors. They get nothing in return, but they make sure that because they're happy with what we offer, and we have a very good two-way connection with them, then they feel really part of it. They feel like it's my club, and they feel like they own the club rather than us. But then they feel very connected to the club, and many people come every single day. So if it's expensive membership, it's not expensive if you're using it on a regular basis. So we'll build our brand mostly through social media and through email marketing and through referral, I'll say. The fact that people can come and experience us, and then they can go away and talk about it. Then they can, if they live nearby enough, they can come back and get a membership. if we have space.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Is that the same, similar sort of story for you, Gareth? How did the NED identify a need or the target market for membership and the sort of lifestyle that you guys are trying to promote?
Well, I think for us, there were always going to be people that were very happy to frequently visit, whether it be for coffee or lunch, maybe the odd meeting or even stay over, but actually didn't want to part company with X thousand pounds a year to have access to the whole building. And there are others who were sort of crying out for somewhere to be able to entertain clients, work out in the morning, do an exercise class, or indeed meet their partner for dinner after work. And so actually we were very clear about the fact that all elements of our business needed to work. So we needed people that were going to be members, but we also needed the public. And the building has been carved up in a way that if we only had members, there'd be a lot of empty space, and if we only had the general public, there'd be a lot of empty space. So for us, it was about not trying to be all things to all people, but trying to recognise that the NED, and I say I talk about the scale of the building because that dictated a lot of our strategy, was we needed to have, transient restaurant customers, we needed loyal members, we needed international and domestic overnight business and leisure travel, we needed people that wanted to get married there. So we actually had multiple different strategies to go and talk to different audiences. And actually one of the things that we have learned over the 4.5 years we've been open, I have to press pause for the last 18 months, but we realised that on a Thursday night, a Friday night after work, and in the winter months, even a Monday, Tuesday night too, there were often more people trying to access our building to come in for a meal or a drink than we could accommodate. And so when you've got a queue outside your front door, which is a really fortunate and almost we're flattered to be in that position, and there are actually people blocking the highway because they're all sort of trying to get in, it still doesn't look particularly elegant. So we thought long and hard about how do we firstly monetize that queue out front, but also how do we do a better job of sort of making sure that people who really want to come in, and we really want to come in, can get in, and show a little bit more loyalty two-way. So we actually introduced something in May this year called NED Friends, which is an entry-level membership, which is £20 a month, and it doesn't compete with our full club membership, which I say is £3,500 a year. But it also means that you're not just a transient customer that we know nothing about you. It's for people that might turn up twice a week or twice a month, people who want to actively engage with us and hear about our events and hear about some of our new initiatives before the rest of the world knows about them. People who might say, you know what, actually this is somewhere where I might come for a staycation and actually I'd like slightly better treatment, whether it be an upgrade or a better rate or whatever it may be. And so we've sort of introduced this NED Friends, which I think has worked really well. We're about 2,000 NED Friends in, and we've been going 4 or 5 months. We are clearly at the start of that journey, but it's allowed us to prioritise certain people for restaurant reservations or not standing in a queue out front in a way that costs very little, but demonstrates that actually membership sometimes has these very exclusive connotations, and you think, oh, lots of money and very privileged. And actually, I think membership can be very accessible, and I think really good examples of that. And I think the word sort of subscription and membership have become bywords slightly. You look at what the Disney Channel have done, what Netflix have done, Spotify have done, even Pret with their coffee sort of subscription for, what is it, £30 a month. And I think the whole idea of membership to something is changing completely, and we're trying to latch onto that and not just be about the people who want to spend, say, thousands of pounds.
Ed, is it a similar story, I guess, like you were saying earlier, it's largely location-based, but how did you identify your market for creating a membership and building a community?
I think we're such a big footprint in terms of real estate and the different diverse attractions that we have for people that there has to be an element which is maybe slightly different of build it and they will come. You can't clearly identify a particular market for every element of our business. what you're really trying to do is identify or communicate clearly who we are. I mean, I think that's where it starts for me. So we put a lot of emphasis on our outward communication. So we create a lot of content for social media. We're very aesthetically minded in terms of that content and how we attract people. But by virtue of putting it out there, we attract people that have the same interests or share that interest. And we really put the emphasis on interest groups rather than particular demographics or particular target audience. Obviously, for different elements, we look at slightly different markets. The hotel is a luxury hotel and it has a price tag to go with a luxury hotel. So, you know, although it's not exclusive, there's quite a steep threshold to entry to the hotel. But you can, if you're a member, you can come and dine in the hotel, and you can experience everything pretty much a hotel guest experience other than stay at the hotel. So there's lots of different entry points for people, but usually they'll come for the same reason, because of interest in the activities that we're doing. And for me, the best way of gathering those people is to be proactive in putting it out in the world, what we are, being clear about what we stand for, who we are, the activities that we put on, and the experience that we give our guests, ultimately.
And with sort of social media and talking about sort of attracting guests, let's thinking about sort of digital offerings. I know a few of you've mentioned in the past that actually there's a huge element of digital to the membership side of things in terms of creating content and bringing members together, almost like a networking addition to membership. How does that work at the Newt?
So I know Gareth's got a lot to say about this as well, and he's a bit more advanced than we are, but I think during the last 18 months, all of us in this room probably have had to accelerate their engagement with digital platforms. You know, in many ways, it's the only way we've had to communicate with people in the last 18 months, and it's the only way it means we've had of provoking or maintaining interest in what we're doing. So we have developed a skill base there, and over the last year, both internally and with partners that we work with, to create content, whether that be, you know, simply social media content or video content, you know, digital workshops, etc., and making that available to our membership. We now have a members page of the website, which is only accessible to members. So an important part of the value proposition for membership is that you have access to digital content. You can access our chefs, our butchers, our growers, our gardeners, our farmers if you want to, and they will provide or share some of their expertise. What we would like to do is take that a step further and start working with the membership themselves. You know, we know that within those 65,000 people, there's going to be a lot of people with interesting stories or things to share. And we would like to start that road of creating a platform for those members to share with each other, so to create a network. And we can be the conduit for that. I know Soho House, the Ned, are thinking in the same way, and probably a bit more advanced. So I don't know, Gareth, if you want to pick up there.
Yeah, do tell us, Gareth, because we know you've got quite a lot going on digitally.
I think Ed's very modest. I think they do a brilliant job, and talking to Ed, there's a few ideas that I wouldn't mind pinching. But having digital content has been more important than ever, particularly in the last 18 months when you've had members who are unable to physically access the premises. How do you ensure you still provide some value, and how do you make sure you keep them warm and you give them less reasons to think they're not getting value and perhaps they're going to resign their membership? So we've had to move very quickly to create content, and that's everything from, you know, looking at the elements within the building and say, how do you provide those online? So it could be live streaming of a concert, for example, that we held on property but no one there, and we streamed that via an app. It could be a fitness class, and cookery demonstrations. The list goes on. But to Ed's point, and I think this is where the opportunity lies, is that when you're creating community, there's this piece around members. Yes, they're signing up to be able to visit your garden or visit your hotel or your spa or whatever it might be, but they actually want to get to know people and they want to feel enriched by that. And so we have a very active program of content for members by members. So there are so many members who want to tell their story or have skills ideas, opportunities to provide a service or educate or make introductions to other members, and to actually mutually help one another to achieve things in their personal life and in their professional life. And that is something that we're at the start of, but already I can tell you that there have been a number of very interesting introductions that have happened where you may have a hedge fund manager or a private equity angel investor interacting with somebody who is trying to get their new idea off the ground, and actually through the club we've been able to join the dots, and those two people, for example, are now at advanced stages of actually funding this idea and seeing where it goes from there. And I think once you start to get a bit of momentum in that respect, the membership proposition becomes altogether more valuable because it can lead to a lot more than just the physical.
How do you curate the sort of content that comes through from members? Is there a sort of a process involved where you have to?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to produce content or going to have members producing content, it needs to be of a certain standard. So, you know, we're spending a lot more money on videography than ever before. We're spending a lot more money having editors and sub-editors looking at material that is good but perhaps not quite good enough. And so, yeah, a lot of the traditional sort of marketing that we might have done has been replaced with graphic designers and people who have different skill sets now to be able to help us produce high quality digital content that perhaps 5 years ago we wouldn't have been having conversations about.
Amazing. And Rafi, is the digital element of members creating content and sharing that something that Sotbar House is looking at as well?
Yes, we have for a while, but it's not so straightforward. And actually, it requires a lot of our time and resource. So, but we currently have an app for all members.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives them their normal, let's say, information, news, offers, that kind of stuff, and all the events that we do and talks and things. But now we have a closed network group so they can private message each other, and we can connect the community together. So the ones are buying or selling or sharing common interests, that's working well. But to have a platform where they can add their own content it's a big ask. In terms of controlling that and managing that, because we're only looking for up to 600 members total. So we want to have a small, close-knit community which we manage, but it's something that honestly it's probably more work. I don't know. We're not there yet. We've only discussed it, but I think it's more work than what people anticipate.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who want to look, if somebody wants, for example, to share their information to other community members, we'll often the opportunity. Do you want to opt into this information? Are you happy to receive network connections from this one and this one, business connections, social connections? Some people are happy to do it via our app. Some people have a meeting in our coffee lounge. They meet there and they do that way. But for them to put all their business or all their social ideas or their new ideas onto the app, we have to somehow kind of control it. And I'm not really resourced for that right now. So we haven't gone that stage yet. But it's something we talked about, but we just parked temporarily. That's the truth.
So what would your advice be for other professionals in the hotel industry if they're looking to implement a membership model?
I'm not necessarily sure for hotels in general, but I would say for what we wanted to do with our kind of private member spa was, well, I would say my advice, do a lot of research, get an expert on board, because I don't think that the model of membership works for every establishment.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do something, I think because you want to get that volume of those brand loyal people, you've got to think differently, do something a bit different. But seek advice, because there are a lot of experts out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Talk to the professionals. And Gareth, what would you say? Do you have advice for anyone looking to implement a membership model?
I'd say be careful what you wish for. Members are in many ways the lifeblood of my business, but I can also tell you they are the most demanding people, and rightly so, to be fair. They spend a lot of money with us, but once you have a membership, your relationship with those individuals will change, and people will feel not only physically invested in you, but they will feel quite entitled. And I remember making lots of mistakes in year one when, about this time of year actually, we decided to put Christmas Day on sale at the Ned. Not sure whether Christmas Day was going to be a thing or not. And we just sent an email out to everyone, our public database, our members, and said, Christmas is on sale. And the backlash we got, because it sold out very quickly, and the number of members that couldn't believe that we hadn't offered them first refusal to book our public restaurants. I'm not talking about the member spaces now. And we didn't see that coming. And I look back on that and I think, I understand that why they felt disappointed, and we've made changes to how we communicate with members now, and we give them priority on everything. But it was a real sense of entitlement, and I realised that, and I think I hear lots of stories, similar stories or parallels with people who run golf clubs, and you can't make any changes unless the golf committee approve them and what have you. And I think you just need to be very mindful that it can be a very lucrative and a nice add-on to what you're already doing, but by the same token, it will take work, it will take lots of attention, and you will need to make sure that the member is very much at the centre of everything you do, not just at what you do within membership specifically.
Ed, any thoughts and advice?
I think learning from our mistakes. I would agree members can be quite fickle and they have long memories. So it's, from my perspective, what we got wrong is we didn't really think through our membership proposition before we opened, we got going, then decided that actually this model works best as a membership. Of course, then you think through your membership proposition, you decide what the price point is for that membership, which is 3 times as much as the person paid last year, and immediately you've made a mistake, because people value things a lot of the time by how much they pay, and if you put a certain price on something, that's the value they put on it. So think it through before you start, and price it accurately as well, I would suggest.
Thank you all so much. I think we're probably going to be asked to leave the stage in a moment, but I'd like to give you guys the floor and see if you have any questions for our panel. Does anyone have any questions to ask? No one? Oh, lady down here.
There you go.
Hi. So some of you, especially Gareth, developed by this time a destination with a members club. Once you have all these members, are you looking into expanding other locations? And also would like to get comments from others as well.
Is that question to everyone?
So first, Gareth, but yeah, would be good to hear other opinions. So once you build the membership and certain clientele, are you looking into expanding hotel and kind of have more locations to allow your members to travel through, or you just concentrated on one destination?
Yeah, I think expansion is absolutely on the agenda, and we'll be announcing international expansion in the next couple of months. Of course, when you have a physical premises where people can stay, in particular, as you grow your network of locations, the membership actually becomes proportionately more valuable. So, for example, if we were to open in New York, then we know for a fact that is going to be very attractive, given the amount of travel, or certainly historically the amount of travel between London and New York, both for business and leisure. And actually, I'm very lucky to be able to look at Soho House as the parent company and recognise that they've gone to 32 properties now around the world, and each time they open a new house, the waiting list for membership gets longer and longer, because it suddenly becomes even more valuable, as I was just alluding to. So I think, again, it's not easy, and there's lots of considerations, particularly as you move into different territories, and some things aren't a direct copy and paste for whatever reason. But there is a real, I think, opportunity when you get momentum with membership that you can scale it, both domestically, online, or indeed physically in international markets.
Interesting. Ed, Rafi, is this similar for you guys? Are you thinking expansion, or are you just concentrating on each individual hotel at the moment?
We will not be expanding the new, or not as far as I'm aware, but we do have a sister property in South Africa, and we share a lot of the thinking. So whatever we develop here, it's likely that the property in South Africa develops similar ideas and vice versa. I think, but in terms of growth, what I'm really interested is in digital growth. So not per se growing locations, but how do we grow membership digitally? How do we bring enough value to that digitally? So you may be in any country, you can't visit the Newt, but there's enough access and enough content digitally that that membership holds some value for you. So we're very engaged in those ideas.
And Rafi, how about you? Is that something that's
Well,
potentially
not
on the
planning to
cards?
expand any sites right now, but we are constantly looking at more value added for the members, really. So I'm looking for more members, more demand for membership, more inquiries, and then offering more. Now we're getting back into the events and the breakfast clubs for the members and that kind of stuff. Since COVID, if it stays as it is, we'll just try and offer more so they get more for their money, and hopefully that will in turn help us to drive the price up and also the demand for memberships.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Thanks. You briefly touched upon the content that you're trying to create digitally for your members, and obviously the world we live in now, sometimes your members can't come to your spaces. Edward, you said that you, I think, which is really cool, that you give them access to the chefs and other people involved with the business. But I know you said that you're all thinking about how we're going to expand that content digitally, and I guess the basics beginning of that is having an app and doing some cool stuff. But what are those ideas? Like, where do you see the future of your digital membership going? And kind of like, where are you concentrating on, and what elements of the club are you trying to take that are, you know, big factors of your experience online?
Go on, Ed.
No, I think we're at the beginning of that journey, if you like. Alongside the physical business, we already have developed an e-commerce platform. So you can buy the Newt delivered to your home, if you like. So we have our produce, our products, you know, access to the brand, if you like, that can be delivered. So there's thinking around, okay, how does that become tied to a membership benefit in some way? We give people access to particular products, product launches, special offers, discounts, micro subscriptions. There's lots of ideas around simply taking an e-commerce business and how do you grow that digitally. I think to make that really successful, if you can tie that to the content and the storytelling that goes behind it, so you don't just buy an anonymous ready meal, you actually know who the chef is and you know whose hands have touched that meal. That kind of vertical provenance is something that we're really, really focused on, and giving people access to that. Ultimately, we have the real estate to do that in terms of the land and the expertise on staff to do that. And I think that's quite a unique proposition if we can do that. So that's where we're focusing our attention. It's really putting our backing behind the people we have working for us and their expertise, their passion, their skills, and trying to share that as much as possible. We do a lot of, not a lot, but we've started live TV. We also think live broadcast to a high quality is, again, something that not everybody has an expertise or the ability to do, and that's a point of difference. So we've done several estate events where we broadcast them live to our Facebook group, and we do live cider tastings from the cellar and various and that's becoming more of a permanent fixture. To deliver that at a kind of TV major media group quality, which we think will set it apart ultimately.
Great. I think we've probably got time for about one more question. Did you have a question in the front row? No? Thought I saw a hand. Does anyone else have any further questions? Yep, lady in the...
Hi, I was just wondering how you physically manage the capacity. So obviously the big membership numbers we were talking about, and perhaps for you, Edward, talking about the Newt, if was it 65,000 members, which is amazing. But if, say, for example, you had a quarter of them who wanted to come down on Easter Monday, for example, how do you manage expectations about capacity on the site versus such a large membership?
doubled the size of the car park in the last, literally in the last month. I think the simple answer is we don't know yet. We've not, the Newt is only 2 years old. We've actually spent more time operating within a pandemic kind of environment than we have outside of a pandemic. So far, apart from a few very busy days where we've literally had to close the gate, which doesn't work with the membership model. You can't let some members in and not let everybody in. So you immediately kind of backfire if you start closing the gates. So I think it's depending on the growth. The physical constraint is the car park, no joke. I mean, we have enough acreage and enough capacity to host a few thousand people. The downside is that we don't have enough amenities to host 5,000 people. The restaurant fills up, the museum fills up, the cafes fill up, and then you can't deliver the experience that you want to deliver to your members. So I think it's something that we will have to broach very shortly in terms of how do we restrict or manage capacity, for sure.
And Gareth, is that something, obviously you had the hordes of people spilling out onto the pavements, so...
A bit of that. One of the questions I get asked a lot is what's the capacity of the club? And the short answer to that question is it depends how people use it. And to give you a very sort of crude but simple example, if I think I've got 10 treadmills in the gym. Now, if I've got 11 people that want to use the running machine at 6:30 in the morning every day, I've got a capacity problem. So we spend a lot of time at the application stage trying to understand what someone's motivation is for becoming a member, how they're likely to use it, and try and curate, if you like, a really blended approach to people that are maybe more interested in the social. Some people see it as workspace, someone see it as a well-being offering, and some people use it for a bit of everything. So I think really understanding your capacity is a really key point. Capacity is a lovely problem to have, of course, and sometimes you are constrained, physical premises rather than doubling your car park. But it is a very real thing that you do need to bear in mind, I think, from the outset, because as Ed has acknowledged, a member won't forgive you if they turn up and don't get in somewhere and they say, well, hang on, I'm paying my subscription or my fees like anybody else. And so you do need to find ways to legislate for that. And going back to my example previously about putting our public restaurants on sale for members first, actually another reason for doing that was there isn't enough space at Christmas time just to accommodate members. So we do give our members priority elsewhere in the building to try and find ways to increase capacity and to navigate around what will inevitably be a challenge at peak periods.
Sophie, can I add one point to that? So we also use quite sophisticated technology to forecast our visitors, and I think that would be my advice as well, is use technology. So we record visitor patterns we have a digital check-in, so we know, and that goes from an algorithm which takes into account school holidays, weather, periods. So we do harness that technology as well. I would recommend anybody thinking of doing the same thing, use the technology.
Well, some really interesting insights. I think we've overstayed our welcome on the stage, unfortunately, so we've run out of time. But I believe the panel are going to be milling around. Are you available for questions if anyone else has them in the area? Yeah, of course. I'm afraid I've got to run off. I'm going to be talking about staycations and domestic tourism upstairs if anyone wants to join the session. But otherwise, thank you very much again for joining us.